What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Digital Duality with the Guru and the Grasshopper. I'm super excited today. We're going to be jumping into content strategy, what it means to build great content strategy, how you can add content strategy to your repertoire of things that you do monthly, as well as different siloing methods, clustering methods for getting your content on the website. And it's just going to be a great episode. I'm super excited about this one. We got Grace here as always, and I'm sure she'll have some phenomenal questions that will bridge the gap between my understanding and, of course, the understanding of someone who might not have as much experience. So
the grasshopper's understanding.
the grasshopper's understanding.
Yes,
So
yes. Well, good
yes.
morning. Good morning. I'm happy to be here on this lovely Monday morning.
Yeah, are you having a good Monday morning so far?
Oh, yeah. Just went to the gym and got up really early, then walked Coco, and here I am. So pretty excited to be here. How was your morning? It's good.
My morning's been good so far. I got my coffee going. I'm doing my one meal a day. So I have a lot of energy, a little bit more than usual, even though I'm not eating any sugar. So I'm happy. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. That is something I know this is like really kind of off topic, but when I visited Europe, you could definitely tell the lack of sugar in things. And then when I came back, I could taste the sugar in literally everything we eat. So the fact that you're cutting out sugar is so good for your body. I just want to throw that out there.
I think it's an experience everyone should have, but it's hard in Western civilization and culture. So it is what it is, right? Yeah, no, awesome. So Grace,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about content strategies, if you have any information on them, any misconceptions, misunderstandings that you can think of off the top of your head. I'd love to hear from your perspective what a content strategy even is.
So when I think of content, just the word content, I think of TikTok or like Instagram Reels. And I'm just like, oh, that's great content, like that kind of thing. But I think a content strategy would have to be something that you plan a lot. And I'm a planner, former teacher. I plan everything. I've planned how many months of episodes for us. So I think that a content strategy is really the planning of it and kind of where you want to start and where you want to go and how you're going to get there along the way and what you're going to share with your audience. I don't know if I have any misunderstandings at this point. I feel like that is a general definition, but then again, I don't know if it's different with SEO and digital marketing than it would be with, just creating funny like contents on TikTok, like funny, I want to say vines because I'm that old, but like funny TikToks or little videos. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what it sounds like you're mostly talking about is what's called a media content strategy, in which you create short clips or things that engage your audience. As it pertains to digital marketing and SEO, when we think of a content strategy, we usually think of what's going on a website, what keywords are we using, what topics are we going to put in our blogs, are we going to use flat structure URL or deep structure URL, things of that nature. So what you're saying though makes sense. I'm glad that I also have you to fall back on to create content strategies, because my mind works in a very divisive way, and we'll talk about that later. But it's definitely not structured in the same way that your mind is structured, or
you
that
are
Victoria's
very big picture.
Very big picture. And
yeah, and you want to, as like a whole, you see the whole thing, which is good because I don't think that way. I think of like the pieces of how we're going to get there, and then you have the whole pie, I guess.
No, and you need both in any company. You need it's called a visionary and an integrator. It's a VI relationship. And essentially, you need somebody who can see the bigger picture so that you can sail the ship. But then you also need people on the ship to, your first mate, and the people who swashbuckle, I guess.
Swashbuckle, yes. And I think that's
Swashbuckling.
why you and Victoria do so well as business partners, because she's a lot like me.
100%.
She's, the pieces, the day to day, and you're the big picture guy of like, where do we want to take our company? What clients do we want to take on? Who am I going to, connect with, whatever. And she kind of just does the day-to-day stuff.
Oh no, absolutely. Victoria is phenomenal at what she does.
Mhm.
Even yourself as you move into a project management role,
Mhm.
you guys just think the same way, and having that kind of thought process keeps
Yeah.
accountability at a company and it keeps
Yes.
processes flowing. Whereas I'm just like, here's the goal, let's go get it. you
Yeah, and
know,
you're like, "You figure it out how to get there," and I'm like, "Okay, well, I have a 12-step plan with
right,
multi subtasks that go with it." Um,
right.
and you're
No,
just
so
kinda
so
like,
I think you're absolutely right, and
yeah.
that creating a content strategy will really help
Mhm.
define everything that you're doing from point A to point B. I do
Mhm.
think it's important to be flexible in the interim though,
Oh,
because
absolutely. Absolutely.
you,
Yes.
if you find out that one of your pieces of content is doing really well, you're going to want to use that content to leverage other content,
Mhm. No, I
and so
agree.
that takes some flexibility in the interim. But otherwise, I think you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
So
And I'm also thinking like, because what you had said earlier about digital marketing SEO and how I was thinking about it, and I just kind of had this idea while we were just kind of chit chatting there was the more, I guess a misconception would be the more content you have, the better your SEO or your digital marketing strategy is going to be. Is that true? Is that, I mean, I feel like it's somewhat true, but I wanted just to get your perspective on it.
sure, absolutely. As always, yes and no, and it depends. If you're creating 100 great articles per month, let's say, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're super refined, they're super detailed, they're giving the Google and search engines the answers that people are looking for, then doing more is always going to be better than doing less. But if you're just fleshing out content at a very quick rate that doesn't necessarily add any quality to what's already on the search engine,
Mm-hmm.
because you got to think about this, right? Google already has anything that you're going to blog about or create content about. Google probably already has something about
Something.
that
Yeah.
topic.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to rank for that topic, you got to put out a really, really phenomenal piece of content.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond the content, it goes back to backlinks that we talked about on our past episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have great content, it doesn't mean it's going to rank immediately. So getting those backlinks and procuring them, also high quality backlinks with high quality content, is
Mm-hmm.
always going to do better. So I guess the answer to your question is yes and no. The more content you produce, if it's quality, then the better. But if you're not producing quality content, then no, it's not better.
And what did you say, I guess, over the years with Google? I hear you talk about this a lot, is that Google is really looking for high quality content. And it will, when it goes through and scans your pages or when I'm indexing pages, it's looking for um, certain attributes to content.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you want to share a few of those things that it looks for?
So the understanding right now is what Google does is it has these things called barrels, and this is
Mhm.
directly from Google itself.
Mhm.
And when it indexes a page, it
Mhm.
scores the page into a barrel based on what it knows about that topic.
Okay.
So if Google has a really, really good understanding about nutrition and gyms and the
Mhm.
paleo diet, for example,
Which I love.
if you
Big fan.
if you write an article about that, it already knows what users like on its search engine, so it's going to
Okay.
score what you wrote up against what already exists, and it's going to decide very quickly if it meets that score or not.
Okay.
And then the more backlinks you get, the more that it raises that score. Does
Mm.
that make sense?
Yeah. 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 Because the
Yeah.
more
So
you have directing to or from the page of a high quality backlink, not just any backlink, but like a high
right.
quality one, then the higher Google sees you as like an an authoritative position, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. And then on top of that, it's also using user signals to score the page. So Google has what's called a pogo sticking algorithm.
I love
If
pogo
somebody
sticky.
pogo sticking, like when you were a kid, right?
Yes.
So if you go to Google and you type in keto diet and you
Mm-hmm.
go to the first result and you decide it's not what you wanted, and you go
Mm-hmm.
to the second result and you read the second result longer, Google uh,
Well,
assigns a negative score to the top result that you visited and a higher quality score to the lower
the
result that you visited because
the
you
one that you
stayed
spend
there
more time.
longer. Right.
And even if you just like got distracted and you're stuck on that site, does it like track the interaction you have with the site, or is it just however much time you have on the site?
If analytics is installed or the user is using Google Chrome, it will track what is happening on the website. I don't know if you've ever jumped into Google Tag Manager. Have you jumped into
Like
that yet?
once or twice.
Okay, so in Google Tag Manager, you can actually track how long somebody scrolled for,
Oh.
um, the click depth. Did they go from one page to another page? You can
Hmm.
track an insane amount of things. So
Hmm.
if you can track that in Google Tag Manager, then you can assume that Google is also tracking those things.
Hmm. I've only done it when we were upgrading from Google Analytics when we were doing that upgrade thing.
Hmm.
That's
Oh, GA4.
yeah, I was just copying over and like making sure the tags managers like codes were right. I didn't really see what tag manager could do, but that's really cool and also Big Brother. Like
Big Brother
that's
for sure.
it's very interesting that they take that much data. But I guess it's good for companies because then they know where the general like average person is going to look, and then I
Mhm.
can see, what are they really looking at on my site? How can I highlight that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's one of the benefits of having tools like analytics and Google Tag Manager.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Consumer data should be protected, I think, to some degree. But at the same time, I think that when we use the internet and we all use a phone, we're kind of accepting that somebody is going to be watching, to be honest, at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I guess another question I have is, should your strategy for content be something you do right at the beginning, or should it be like a I want to like a plant I was gardening this weekend. So like a plant metaphor is where I'm going with this. Like, does it grow and, change over time, or is it something that you should stick to um as a one-time planning session? What do you think is the most effective? Is there a most effective way to plan for it?
I think that it really kind of comes down to who you ask and what their experience is and what type of website it is.
Okay.
So in affiliate marketing,
Mhm.
uh, we use a lot of divisive clustering in which we create topics that are kind of scattered.
Okay.
There's no real rhythm or rhyme other than we want to rank for this particular keyword.
Mhm.
We're hoping to get traffic to it.
And
It's a
you're
high
throwing
volume
spaghetti at a
keyword.
wall?
Yeah, right, exactly. You're throwing spaghetti at a wall because you want a super high volume keyword
Yeah.
and you want to link it to other high volume keywords.
Mhm.
Now, you can do some siloing structure with that, but that does evolve over time. And like I said, depending on the type of website you have, like the websites we build are
Mhm.
very organized.
Yes.
If you look at our pages, you'll see that we have services, we have locations, they drop down into the services, the locations, and then they drop down into the locations for the services and the services for the locations.
Mhm.
So, but then we also use a blog strategy that is siloed, but also kind of divisive in nature because we go after things that we're going to get a lot of traffic for. But
Okay.
as we're paying attention to the website, it's important to see what's ranking, what's
Mhm.
not, and how we can use the ranking of certain pages to transfer what's called link equity that we've discussed before
Mhm.
to other pages because we want the website to grow as a whole. We want all ships to rise rather than just
Yes.
one or two
Just one
pages.
or two things. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And then my last thing is, I guess my last general misconception would be the length of content. Is longer better? Is medium size better? Is, short, concise, and linking to other things better? What are your thoughts on that?
So at one point in time, there was a search engine algorithm on Google where we found as search engine optimizers that longer content was better.
Mm-hmm.
We have now found that it depends on the query in question. If somebody Googles, um, I have a Harry Potter site, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you do. The Daily
If
Prophet,
some,
right?
right, the Daily
Yeah.
Prophet, and it gets a lot of traffic, gets millions of visitors per year.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody Googles, what is Accio, for example, that page is incredibly short and it ranks towards the top of Google because all people want is a definition.
Yes.
Now, if somebody said, what or how many times was Accio used in Harry Potter?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a much longer piece of information and content that you're providing because you're discussing every single instance in which Accio was discussed.
Mm-hmm.
So what search engine optimizers have found over time is that the content length varies by what the user expects to read when they visit the website.
Okay. And just so that we can remind our listeners, a query is what you put in the search bar, and the search engine will think of it as a question.
Right. It's a query is a programmatic term, but it's also a question. And anything you put into a search engine, Google sees or Bing sees as a question that's being asked.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just wanted to make sure we redefine that because it's still weird to me to use that word as like even now. So
No, absolutely, 100%. So yeah, just in terms of that misconception, it comes down to what's known as consumer intent. So
okay. So now my next question is, when you are making a content strategy and you're looking at length and you're looking at the amount of content you want to have, what would your best practices be for generating ideas for content?
that's a wonderful question. And we'll go even a little one step further in this. But when looking to generate content, like we discussed before, we were talking about if you're looking for something or you're creating a new website, the information probably already exists on Google, right?
Yes.
So one of my first, what I do, one of my methodologies is I'll go to Google and I'll start looking for websites that have done what I already want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll think about how I can mimic their content strategy and make it better.
Okay. So you're
So,
doing research.
yeah, I'm doing research. My first step
Okay.
is doing research. What already exists out there? What is somebody doing that works?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how can I leverage what I know already works on the search engine to my benefit?
Okay. Okay.
And even in terms of content length, right? If I'm writing a blog about the top 10 laptops in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go look at the top 3 results on Google and I'm going to take an average of how many words are in the top 3 positions and I'm going to structure my article to meet that average.
That's an interesting, I would have never thought to do that.
And a lot of people don't, but Google already knows what it wants to see if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go and you mimic what's already ranking on page 1 at the top of Google,
Yeah.
then you're meeting that score we talked about earlier
Mm-hmm.
by providing similar content. Now, everything becomes iterative and you have to understand that you might rank better if you add more words or less words, but
Yes.
ultimately that's a good average and starting point.
Okay. And then, when you're coming up with ideas and you are brainstorming, what I think of like Jimmy Neutron, where he's like, brain blast. Um, what what are your strategies? Do you use ChatGPT? Do you just kind of search around? What advice would you give beginners as they're starting to think about brainstorming?
Well, I'm curious, how do you see us brainstorm at the company, or how do you see other SEOs brainstorm? What do you usually see? Have you seen anything in that regard?
When it comes to content, I'll look at the website that we're doing it
Mhm.
for, definitely, and I'll see, and I'll look at the past posts or things we've done because I don't want to do too much of one specific thing. So let's say if we have an HVAC company, we don't want to do 15 blogs on furnace repair and 2 blogs on AC repair. We want to
Right.
have like a good mix. So I'll definitely look and see what other content we've done for them, and then I will go to the handy dandy ChatGPT and I will ask it to give me some ideas for blog titles. And usually I'll have to, go through about 50 of them before I find one that I really like or that kind of encompasses what I feel like the brand is like.
Sure.
And then I'll use that, and then I'll use your quick writer after I get the H2s and the FAQs and all that. So um that's kind of where what I do. I don't know if that's, the best use of my time, but
Sure.
I'm sure, there's little nuances I haven't quite done yet.
I think that's a good, I wouldn't say it's a horrible way to approach things. If you take a
Mhm.
look at content that's already been provided, if you use artificial intelligence to help you generate new ideas,
Mhm.
I don't think if you're providing high quality content around those ideas, I don't think it's a bad idea because you're probably going to rank for a keyword. The standard approach to coming up with ideas and brainstorming content is to go to a keyword planner. So, for
Mm.
example, Google Keyword Planner or
Okay.
Keyword Finder or whatever that particular person or the agency uses.
Mhm.
And most people try and start with, and this goes back into strategy, they try and start with the highest search volume available, which is flawed in a lot of ways, but that is what they try and do. They'll say, hey, I want to rank for, you know, um, gambling casino online or casino online, a very short phrase that gets 200 300,000 searches per month because they think,
Mm.
oh, if I can capitalize on just a fraction of that
Of
traffic,
that.
I'm going to make
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Mhm.
But this is a flawed approach in the sense that if you have a new website or a website that doesn't have a lot of authority, if you try and jump to a
Like a really
hierarchical,
high keyword.
yeah, if you try and jump to a really high search volume keyword that
Mhm.
sits at the top of your pyramid or your pillar or your content strategy, and your
Mhm.
website doesn't have the authority to rank that page, it's not
Mhm.
going to happen.
Okay.
So it's important when looking at content strategy to, especially blogs and affiliate websites and things of that nature, to look at the keywords that have low search volume.
Okay.
You should gain mastery over the keywords that have low search volume, and then you should work your way up
Over
to
time.
over time to keywords that
Mhm.
have super high search volume. And that's kind of how we started with the Harry Potter website that I have.
Mhm.
We started with these really small long tail, they're called long tail keywords,
Mhm.
and sometimes they would only drive 50 users a month to the website.
Yeah.
But now we rank for things like Avada Kedavra and things of that nature, Harry
Avada-kedavra.
Potter quizzes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good.
I was
Avada
channeling
Kedavra.
Voldemort. Avada Kedavra. Yeah. So should you, when you're starting, I guess my question
Mhm.
is, should you go with low, medium, or should you just start with low and then build up to low, medium to medium, medium, high?
So this goes back into research, but essentially you should take your keyword and you should go to Google and you should search it.
Mm-hmm.
If Google says it's a low volume keyword or I'm sorry, a low competition keyword,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's low volume two or medium volume or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and Forbes wrote an article about it, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or some astronomically authoritative website comes up
Did,
for this
yeah.
keyword,
Mm-hmm.
you're probably not going to outrank that, even if it is low volume or you know
Yeah.
low
Low
difficulty.
traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, low traffic, low difficulty. You're
Mm-hmm.
probably still not going to rank above Forbes for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I would expect not to, for sure.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see how people approach that, but that's how I have found it to be the most successful, especially on newer websites or websites that don't have a lot of authority.
Mm-hmm. Could you explain to me what a long tail keyword is? Because I've heard it. I don't know what it means.
Sure. So we work with a lot of HVAC companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say that a seed keyword or a short tail keyword is AC repair.
Okay.
So if you rank for AC repair, like if you go to Google right now and you type in AC repair, the first company that comes up in the results, they have dominance over the seed keyword or the primary keyword, whatever you want to call it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very short.
Yes.
Now, as we add more parts of speech to it, it becomes a long tail keyword.
Okay.
So if you do AC repair in Scottsdale,
Okay.
now it's a long tail keyword because you have modified the primary keyword to include adjectives or other
Like
nouns
locations or whatever.
or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. Right. So
Okay.
then it becomes long tail and it becomes easier to rank for in theory.
In theory.
In theory.
In
And that just goes
actuality.
back to who's already ranked for it.
Oh, so it depends on who's already ranked for that long tail keyword. And if it's a really high authoritative site, sorry, that word's hard. Um, it it is harder to rank with those long tail keywords. So you have to find ones that don't have such high, or companies with high authority scores. Oh my
Right.
gosh. It's Monday morning.
That is
And try to rank for those. Yes.
correct.
Okay. Despite I am fumbling with words today because it's
All right. Not enough coffee. You probably need more.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to ask about next is when you're looking at a company, let's say one of our clients, one of our carpet cleaning clients, what understandings should someone have about their target audience? Is that something the business, like I think last episode we talked about what would your ideal customer look like? What is that, using that to understand your target audience in order to do the research, in order to write the quality content?
Yes. This all is integral of itself. It's all integrated,
Yes.
which is, why learning digital marketing as a whole is such a very long and tedious task as a profession. But yeah, let's jump into it. So there's 3 different types of intent. And it doesn't matter what type of website you have.
Okay.
You have a transactional intent, which somebody intends to buy something. You have a navigational intent, which somebody is trying to get somewhere on the internet.
Okay.
And then you have informational intent, in which people are looking just simply for information. So if you think of a carpet cleaning website, if we write a blog, that might be informational intent.
Yes.
If we write a service page, that's transactional intent because we're trying to get somebody to buy something and they're also trying to buy something.
Yes.
If you have a directions page on your website, that's navigational intent to, say, a restaurant or whatever the case may be, right? So by categorizing your pages into these 3 different types of intents, you will meet people at different parts of the sales funnel for your particular website and niche.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I know that's an incredibly advanced topic.
Yes. I mean, I can explain what I got from it and then you can fill in.
Absolutely. Please explain what you got from it.
So the first one I was thinking of when I'm shopping, online shopping, and I'm on lululemon.com. That is a transactional intent, right?
Yes.
If I'm on Google Maps because I'm trying to find, or Apple Maps, because I don't use Google Maps because it always takes me the wrong place. So if I'm on Apple Maps and I'm trying to find this dog groomer, like in relative location to myself, that is the navigational. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And the last one was
informational.
So if I am on my ASU website and I go to the ASU library and I'm trying to find a peer review journal for a certain topic I'm doing my dissertation on, then that would be informational.
Correct. You are absolutely correct. The thing to remember is that search intent can be more than one as well. Say you go to Lululemon and they have a new line of, I don't know, what do you buy there? Leggings? Say they have a new line of leggings with new technology that you're really interested in. Now it's become informational and transactional intent.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right. And this means different parts of the funnel and goes back to psychology and how your website is set up, as we discussed in our last episode. But Essentially, if you have an informational piece of content like we write in our blogs, you
Mm-hmm.
want to interject at some point transactional intent to get people to use your service, even though they might be reading a DIY blog, for example.
Mm.
Does that
So
make
like
sense?
when we put in the call us today and then have a link to their like contact page or something that's
Right.
connected to the blog. Okay.
Yeah. Or if we're using persuasive content to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is the DIY for this project, but as you can see, it's incredibly complicated. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you should call your nearest HVAC company, us, to help you complete this.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So
Okay.
then you've taken somebody from informational intent, which is a
To
different part of the sales funnel,
yeah.
to transactional and purchasing intent.
Is there like a hierarchy of them or are they all kind of on the same plane, but you can be in multiple intents at the same time?
You can be in multiple intents at the same time, and it goes back to the standard funnel of what a website is, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole topic in itself. But uh, essentially, you have discovery, where somebody discovers your
Yeah.
website. You
Mm-hmm.
have the educational part of the funnel. You're educating about the service,
Okay.
and then beyond the education and whatnot, you start moving into the transactional part of it. If somebody wants to use it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the nurturing part of it, where you follow up later to make sure that they got the service that they want, they got the product they wanted, and that they
Mm-hmm.
become a lifelong customer.
Okay.
And those keywords and those intents fall into different parts of that funnel, because obviously an informational intent is not always going to lead to a transactional purchase. But if you
Mm.
capture an email or a number, you might be able to remarket to them.
Mm-hmm.
So everything just kind of coalesces and goes back into itself.
Interesting. Okay. So there's no clear hierarchy. It's kind of wherever the consumer is at that point.
Right, wherever the consumer is at that point, because somebody might be in a informational phase. Like if you were going to get I don't know. We have a client, right, who does, let's say they do body sculpting work.
Mm-hmm.
Since that's a pseudo medical procedure
Mm-hmm.
ish, they might be looking for a lot of information about this particular service or procedure so that they can understand if it's right for them. And they might not be ready to transact today, but they might be ready to transact in a month from now.
Okay. Because it
And how
usually
you
costs a lot of money.
Yeah, well, because they're worried about their health, they're worried about the side
Yeah.
effects, they're worried about
Yeah.
money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take keywords that have high search volume and you write a great article about it and you get them on the page for information, and then you
Mm-hmm.
capture an email and then you get their transactional intent later, that's just part of the sales funnel. It's part of long tail keyword
Mm-hmm.
optimization and brainstorming, and that's kind of why SEO is kind of hard when you think about it from point A to point Z, because there's so many
There's so
things in
much
the
in
middle.
between.
So much.
And I know today you also wanted to talk about advanced SEO structuring. You wanna break that down for me because that sounds like a quite a whammy of fun things to talk about today.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about kind of advanced strategy in general.
Okay.
For example, we have, flat URL structure versus deep URL structure. We have
Mm-hmm.
website silos, which people are constantly talking about, reverse silos, and some different clustering methods.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll go ahead and start at the top.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of this in a cascading method because,
Okay.
for example, you want to start with your URL structure before you jump into the content. So I'm just
Yes.
thinking of it in a cascading structure.
A
So
waterfall, if you will.
a waterfall, if you will. That's actually what it's called in GT metrics. When you run your scans, it's called the waterfall.
It is also an agile method for project management.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not big on project management.
It's
Big
okay.
head guy.
It's all right. It's all good.
That's why I have
So
you around.
at the top, let's say Niagara Falls. At the top of Niagara Falls, we have the URLs. So can you tell me what a deep URL structure and a flat URL structure is?
Yeah, so a flat URL structure is what you're used to on our websites. You have the root, which is the domain name,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the URL for whatever it is exactly your keywords are.
Okay.
There's no different directories. There's no different page hierarchy. It's just a flat structure.
Okay.
And then a deep URL structure is what you see a lot on news websites, where you'll see like Forbes.com /the date /technology /the article.
Mm. So it's making it more detailed. It's not just like a simple URL like www.servicelifter.com. That's it. Or like about us, right?
Right.
And then with a news outlet of some kind, it could be Forbes.com. And then you're going into the technology section of the site on this day in this topic.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's pros and cons to using both of those strategies, but effectively SEOs over time have started to lean more towards a flat structure.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because it's very easy to what's called cannibalize on your end page.
Okay. All right.
Have we used that term before? Are you familiar with cannibalization?
Hannibal Lecter. Come on.
Hannibal Lecter, the spinal cord disconnector.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's
I've never
right.
heard that before, but that's great.
Okay, yeah. So in SEO, all right,
Yes.
let's say our carpet cleaning websites, right?
Mhm.
Let's say we, Steamy Concepts, they're a formidable carpet cleaner, probably the largest one in the world, that's non-franchised.
Mhm.
If their URL structure is steamyconcepts.com /Awatuki /carpet cleaning.
Awatuki. It's Awatuki.
Awatuki. Is it Awatuki?
Awatuki. It's just you don't have to overpronounce any of the syllables.
Awatuki.
There you go.
Okay. So you had /Awatuki and then /carpet cleaning.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is if you don't make your Awatuki, however you say it, page specifically about that city, you might cannibalize on the carpet cleaning page that comes after it. So if you mention carpet cleaning too many times on the directory of Awatuki, then you're cannibalizing on the end URL that's also about carpet cleaning.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of. I'm thinking of it in like location pages. So when we build sites, we build a carpet cleaning page for every city that's within their like radius or whatever. So if I'm doing for example, Steamy Concepts /Awatuki /carpet cleaning, Steamy Concepts /Chandler /carpet cleaning. So how does that cannibalize? Is it just the carpet cleaning?
So it's any service. So you could have /Chandler /tile and grout cleaning service.
Okay.
So if you mention tile and grout cleaning services on the Chandler page, it's possible that Google may try and rank the Chandler page above the actual page that you want ranked.
Oh,
so then
okay.
it cannibalizes on itself, because
Yes.
then does that make sense? More sense now?
Yes, that
Okay.
makes a lot of sense
Okay.
now.
Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't
Okay.
connect the dots before.
No, it's okay. It's I kind of had to talk that through. Okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be Hannibal Lecter.
We don't want to be Hannibal Lecter. We don't want to cannibalize on anybody.
No.
The other con that you run into is Google has to crawl more pages. So they're called hops. They have to hop from the root directory, which is steamyconcepts.com, to Chandler, to carpet cleaning. So that's 3 hops.
Yes.
Whereas if you just have steamyconcepts.com /carpet cleaning Chandler, that's only 2 hops. So this reduces what's called crawl budget, which is finite, as you know, and may help the website rank quicker, more efficiently, because there's not multiple hops and you're not expending your crawl budget.
Okay.
Now, the cons to this particular setup is that things aren't organized. Some people have a much easier time building websites when everything is organized into hierarchical directories. But that really comes down to the search engine optimizer and what their preference is, in my opinion.
Okay. That was I'm gonna let that one marinate for a minute. So let's move
You,
on to the next thing, and then
you
we
gonna
can
let that
come back if
marinate?
I
Is
need
that
to. I just gotta sit
that's
in my
that's a whole
brain for
lot
a
right
little bit.
there?
Yes, that was wow. And that's just like one like little thing too.
Right.
Like that's
Right.
just the basic like how you
That's
get
just
to a
URL
website.
structure. That's all
Yeah,
that is URL structure.
that's really not like complicated, but
It's
it
not,
is.
but it is. It is because you're dealing with programmatic algorithms
Mm-hmm.
that do different things depending on what the URL structure is. And if you don't know what those things are, and we can even deep dive this. The only reason I know is because I've monitored what is called log file analysis, where you actually look at how Google is reading the website and determining which URL structure is more efficient.
Okay.
Fascinating stuff, right?
This is it's like neurobiology. It's so cool.
Oh, well,
Uh,
what's crazy is Google actually modeled their entire algorithm and system off of your neural network in your brain.
I believe it because
They have a
that's how
whole
they.
paper on it.
Oh,
Whole
I
paper on it.
absolutely believe it. Yes,
Yeah.
110%. So when we're talking about going beyond the URL, going
Hmm.
into the website silo or the silos, I guess.
Yes. The next part
What?
of the waterfall is the silos.
Yes. So what is a silo? What is it doing for us? Is it like an organizational structure of the site? Is it how would you in the most simple terms you can think of? How would you describe a silo?
So I would describe a silo as a compartmentalized category that you put your pages into, kind of like what we do on our websites. You have your service page, which has all your services.
Mm-hmm.
You have your location page, which has all your locations.
Mm-hmm.
When we write blogs, we assign them to a category, right?
Yes.
So that is a siloed structure. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So super easy. Say you had
Yeah.
a nutrition website, you might use healthy recipes, supplements, as a particular silo, or an exercise silo might be cardio routines, weight training tips, so forth and so on.
Mm-hmm. So you have like at the top of the screen, you have exercise and you have nutrition. And then when you kind of like hover over one of the
Right.
two under, let's say, nutrition, it gives you diet basics, healthy recipes, supplements, stuff like that. So it's
Right.
the way that it's organized on the site so you can find what you need without having to dig through the entire site.
I would say that silos kind of work in the same sense that our brain does.
Okay.
We're very logical creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a website is laid out in terms of a very easy to follow structured silo, your user is just going to be able to navigate very quickly with little
Mm-hmm.
effort.
Yes, which is good for you because then they're more likely to come back to your website,
Right.
right?
No, 100%. 100%. And then on the opposite end of that, you have a reverse silo.
Okay.
And um, a reverse silo is just simply you're prioritizing the content before the actual silo itself.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Kind of.
Keep
Okay.
talking and I'll interject when I need to.
So essentially on a website, you have what's called cornerstone content. Have we ever discussed that before?
No.
Okay, so cornerstone content is the content that you want to rank. If you have a exercise website or a fitness website, you might be providing all this information around different types of nutrition, exercise, so
Mm-hmm.
forth and so on. But there's certain articles that you may want to rank higher because you want to, again, sell something, right? You want
Okay.
the transactional intent.
Mm-hmm.
So say you want to list the top 5 um, hydration supplements and write a
Mm-hmm.
blog about it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you want to put your Amazon affiliate links on it.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that a reverse
Okay.
silo would be prioritizing that content
Mm-hmm.
rather than the silo itself. So you might
Yes.
have, right, you know what I'm saying? So instead of having
Yes.
everything siloed out, you have it
Mm-hmm.
navigationally uh, you are navigationally pushing the user to the content that is a lot more divisive rather than as a whole.
Yes. Yes. Okay. That makes sense. So then with that, would it have like a suggested articles at the bottom? Like if you like this, you should also read this. Is
Right.
that
And it
kind of
might
along
not,
those lines?
correct. And it might not have any logical intent behind it
Mm-hmm.
towards the consumer. The consumer, it might just jump from, the top 5 hydration supplements to the top 10 barbells that you want to use, or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
you know
Yeah.
I've purchased barbells in my life, so I know that there's like, sometimes it can get really specific. Sometimes you need a
Yes.
35-pound barbell, a 45-pound barbell. But jumping from a hydration supplement to
To something
barbells
like that. Yeah.
just doesn't logically make sense. I mean,
Yes.
it does from the point if you're trying to make a sale, but from how our
Mm-hmm.
minds work, it doesn't actually make sense.
Yeah. Because when you're thinking of hydration, I don't automatically go to weightlifting.
Right, exactly. You would go to other things surrounding hydration or
Mm-hmm.
just nutrition in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's the
Okay.
difference between a silo and a reverse silo. And a lot of SEOs in affiliate marketing prefer to use reverse silos because they're trying to get those sales as quickly as they can,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just creating a robust website with very informative content. And I think there's pros and cons to both, depending on your goal.
And depending on what your product is.
Right. Oh, 100% depending on
Yeah.
what your product
So
is.
then I guess we're gonna move into clustering. So there's a word on here. It is a SAT word, a $20 word, if you will. Agglomerative clustering. Can you define that for us, please?
Yeah. So there's, like you said, there's different types of clustering, and a lot of search engine optimizers don't dig this deep down into clustering. They just create a silo or a reverse silo. They go
Mm-hmm.
after high intent keywords, but they don't look at how everything is clustered together, and how you cluster a website effectively helps Google to understand the organizational flow of it, the authority of different topics,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's very important. But in essence, and I'm gonna try to explain this the best that I can with the least amount of words as I can. Um, Agglomerated clustering is uh, combining um, large cluster points together, or what pages uh, that make sense, more or less. It's not
Okay.
divisive. It goes
Okay.
back to the silo strategy. You would use agglomerated clustering with a silo strategy because agglomeration is putting everything together in a very logical way that makes sense.
Okay. Agglomerative kind of sounds like globbing things together. But also, as you're
Yeah.
explaining this, I'm thinking of, I don't know if you ever watched Workaholics, but in Workaholics or It's Sunny in Philadelphia, I can't remember which one, there's this meme where he's got like the board and he's got all of the like pictures on it and the
Mm,
red like string that's connecting everything. And it's kind
right.
of like that's what I'm thinking of as you're explaining this. Is that like
Yeah. So
everything has a relationship, is what I'm trying to.
that's essentially how it works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess the way that you could think of agglomeration is in general that way. How everything connects together
Mm-hmm.
in a logical format rather than a divisive format, because that's the other way that you can cluster is divisive, in which everything is separated uh, rather than globbed together, I guess, as you
Okay.
put it.
So what you just said, divisive. What would that look like?
So a divisive cluster would be everything is split. These are very advanced topics to talk about and very hard to picture, to be completely honest.
It's okay. I mean,
I
I'm just
wish I wish we had examples though. I wonder if I could find examples for our listeners.
okay.
That way we can add them to the podcast, so I can be like, hey, go to this website because this is a divisive approach. Um,
Okay.
but essentially, I guess the way that you can think of it is a divisive approach doesn't have any initial sorting,
Okay.
more or less.
So
It be It
let's
becomes
say you're at
sorted.
the library, right?
Uh-huh.
And you have all of the like go back books, and they're not necessarily sorted into their sections yet, but they're
Hmm.
all just kind of together. Would that be kind of what that's like?
Right. And as time goes on, they may find their way back to a type of sorting,
Okay.
but initially it's very separated and divisive, which is why we go back to reverse silos where the information is just spread out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of how that's opposite to agglomeration or agglomerative clustering, you would group everything together in a very logical format.
Okay. I feel like that's counterintuitive though.
It does have its pros and cons, and it really goes back to how people choose to structure things. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people, like you said, just want to throw noodles at the wall and hope it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised how many websites are actually like that.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I know that we're very succinct and we have a very
Like
structured,
a very clear
a
structure of
very
how
clear,
we do things.
right, a very clear structure of how we do things. But a lot of websites are not that way. They use reverse silos. They're very divisive.
Mm-hmm.
um, or you could think of it as divided. I guess that word comes from divided, and the topics are split up. There's no logical flow. There's no agglomeration. There's no actual silo. And I'll send you some examples, and you'll just be like, "What were these people thinking when they put this website together?"
It's giving me anxiety thinking about it right now because I am
Right,
such a type A planner
right.
that I like there has to be some sort of plan.
Well, there's a method to the madness. Essentially, what they're doing is they're trying to rank as many pages as they can, as
Mm-hmm.
quickly as they can, to start making money off of their efforts.
But if it's all jumbled up, how is anyone going to find the information?
I mean, so the theory is that if you go to Google and you type in top 10 hydration supplements, the page comes up. They're trying to rank that page
That
rather
specific
than
page. Got it.
that specific page to make money rather
Mm-hmm.
than providing a hierarchical, siloed, structured, agglomerative,
Yes.
clustered method.
Okay. And then there's one last type of clustering.
There's k-means clustering, and this one's easy to describe.
Okay.
Unlike agglomerative and divisive clustering, this uses a clustering method that is specific to a user defined um, I don't know what you would call it, parameter, a user defined parameter. Say you have, multiple pages on a website that are doing very, very well, and the other 100 pages aren't doing that well.
Mm-hmm.
You would link the pages that are doing very well together. That would be the specific idea that you use to cluster as a k-means cluster. You would say these pages are ranking very, very well. I'm going to link them all together. And by linking them all together, they're going to do even better.
So by linking them all together, though, wouldn't that potentially give you more impressions on the pages that aren't doing so well because they're looking at other things?
Well, what it'll do is it'll raise the authority of the pages that are doing really well to an
Mm-hmm.
even higher authority so that you can continue to drive traffic to them. And then if you have this cluster of pages that are doing really well
Mm-hmm.
uh, as a singularity, you can then shoot off page equity to other pages. You're correct.
Mm-hmm.
From this,
Okay.
does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of like I'm thinking of it as like a family tree, right?
Right.
So you start with like grandma and grandpa. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
there's your most popular pages, and then they have their
Mm-hmm.
kids. And then those are your maybe somewhat popular pages. And then they have their kids, and then that is your not so popular pages. And like the way that it breaks down over time is um the authority you built at the top kind of siphons down to the other pages because people will be I like to think of people as curious. I like to think that
Mm-hmm.
people want to learn more. Maybe that's just me as an academic, but
Right.
um and my ongoing love of learning. But breaking that down and seeing, what other things could potentially connect, things in your brain and have a light bulb moment like, oh, that makes total sense. I
Right.
got started this page and I got to this page and oh my gosh, it makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even beyond that, the flow of link equity that Google provides, if you have, all your pages in a K cluster together and
Mm-hmm.
you shoot off that link equity to other pages,
Mm-hmm.
now you're not just connecting one page to another page, you're connecting a K cluster to pages. So it's gonna have multiples of link equity through the pages that transfer to other pages.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's almost
I am learning
it-
so much today.
yeah, it's mathematical in a lot of ways, and
Yes.
I guess if we had to go back to the clustering methods, if you think of a library and a bookshelf in general, agglomerated clustering is how a library is pretty
Mm-hmm.
much set up, right?
The Dewey Decibel System.
The Dewey Decimal System, everything is organized.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a fantasy book, it goes in fantasy. If it's romance, it goes in romance.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you think of divisive clustering, it's pretty much all the books on one bookshelf,
Yes.
and you're using different linking methods to try and make them make sense based on your intent.
Okay. Not
And then you
necessarily
have
the user intent, but the person who's making it.
right. So if you're
Okay.
trying to get sales, if you're trying to push people down a funnel,
Mhm.
excuse me, that's when you would use divisive clustering. And then you
Okay.
have K clustering, which is you put the highest read books on one shelf.
Okay. So like your
And
most popular.
your most popular section right here. So I
And
guess
they don't
libraries
have to
kind of
be sectioned by topic though. Like if it's like a nonfiction, a fiction
right.
book, a romance, it's just whatever's the most popular book.
Yeah, so I guess
Okay.
libraries use all three because they have a miscellaneous section, they
Mm-hmm.
have the most viewed section, and then they
Mm-hmm.
have the Dewey Decimal System. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's how you could think of those three different clustering methods. And depending on how your silo is set up, you would want to use a different clustering method.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mind blown yet?
A little bit, yeah. I'm just sitting here just trying to think through like I had no idea that there was this much with just like really basic things that the logic of it, I would logically think of using the easiest URL possible, right?
Right.
I would think of grouping things together in the most logical way for people
Right.
so that they can get all the information they need. And then I would also think of um grouping things by topic. I I don't see why anyone it's I mean, I'm trying to think of a situation where somebody would use a different way of doing it,
Yeah.
but I also can get really frustrated on websites when I don't get the information I need.
Right.
And I really appreciate sites that if I search something and something goes up and I click on that first whatever, it gives me the answer I need. So I don't have to keep looking at 6 other sites because it's not giving me a clear-cut answer of my question.
And I think that's why it's so important to think about your website setup and structure and
Mm-hmm.
clustering before you even begin. It's
Mm-hmm.
important to look at and research your competitors. It's
Mm-hmm.
important to understand your long tail versus short tail keywords because if you don't have an overarching understanding, like me, a big picture person,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to nail down into the nitty gritty like you and Victoria do?
Mm-hmm.
So
Because
it's important to
without the big like you can have what I and Victoria do. You can have that. But if you don't have a clear goal in mind, what you do, you're never going to be satisfied. You're never going to give anyone
right.
really what they truly need from your site.
And that's why, again, me and Victoria work so well together is because when me and her sat down in a room for hours and hours and hours, such as me and yourself are doing, I explained these different things to her. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is why we need to do this the way we should. Please roll out a process for it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of thought and intent behind our websites, our structure, and what we specifically do at Service Lifter. But I don't think most people understand
Yeah. I didn't understand that till now. So,
that.
I mean, you got one more person who understands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Try explaining all this to a client.
I don't know if I could.
I don't know if I could. It's
I,
it's almost
yeah.
impossible. So when clients come to us and they're like, why are you better than other SEOs, or why are you better than other companies? I'm like, well, if you
Well,
don't feel that we are, we don't have contracts. So let's give it
yeah.
a shot.
But
Because
also, I think if somebody did ask that question and somebody was like, why are you better than other SEOs? Well, we don't charge as much.
right,
We give better or the same results as other companies that are charging more.
right,
We have a streamlined website building process.
right,
We have a streamlined ads process for the most part. We have all these standard procedures that we follow in
yeah,
order to have our websites do so well. And I know that you have to, I don't know how many hours exactly is you have the roadmap for SEO.
right.
How many hours does it take again in total?
So the roadmap that we have decided is the best approach to search engine optimization. We estimate it takes about 1,600 hours in total.
Okay, so 1,600 hours. I know some of our, like with the amount of SEO that we give our clients, that could
Mm,
take years, you
right,
know, and it isn't just us that's doing it too. It could be hours of them doing other things as well.
right,
But that's why it takes so long to rank your website because there's so many things like even before you build a website, like we were just saying, your URLs, your silos, like everything has to be thought out in a methodical way. You can't
right,
just throw spaghetti at a wall and just be like, here's my website.
right.
Because
And,
you're not going to get any authority. You're not going to get any traction. No one's going to want to look at it because it doesn't make sense.
right. And when you do things in this methodical approach, you help Google understand the comprehensive ness of your website.
Mm-hmm.
You help users navigate your website, which brings them back over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
You create the authority, and by a culmination of all those things is why we can lift websites so quickly, and why other search engine optimizers
There we go.
can have a hard time if they don't
Okay.
understand these facets.
That's really just mind blowing.
It
I,
really
I,
is.
wow.
And we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
All these clustering methods, especially the K clustering, they exist in a 3D space. So I don't want to blow your mind with that today, but it's not actually 2D like you're thinking of on a website. There's things like distance that comes into effect, literal distance between pages that Google measures. So we'll have to get into that one day because it's a whole conversation in itself. But this goes very, very deep into data sciences.
Yeah. It, uh, I can't even fathom that right now at all. Um, wow. Okay. So when you're clustering your content, when you're, have your silos, when you have it all in a logical order, right? When you're scheduling and planning your content,
Mm-hmm.
do you think it's important to create a content calendar? Do you think it's important to um have some sort of schedule you follow, or is it like you should probably do, because I know with when we post content sometimes we can backdate things.
Right.
So is it, as long as you get, let's say, like 2 or 3 blogs up a month, is that, and you can backdate them if you need to, should you have a schedule, or should you, once you do your research, you find something that you could, that's a, let's say you're a newer site, a low long tail keyword? What do you think?
Um, I think so. Google has an algorithm called the freshness content algorithm.
Okay.
And what they're looking for is they go into your website. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if you know this, but you can see on the back end of a page the last time that the page was modified.
Okay.
So Google can actually read the dates on your website more or less, and it can see one, how frequently you do something,
Mm-hmm.
and two, how often it gets updated.
Okay.
So if you have a content strategy that is based in planning and scheduling, by being consistent because you've scheduled it out, you're going to make sure that the freshness of the content is always above reproach, and the algorithm that Google uses sees it as
Mhm.
continually fresh content.
Okay.
So I think it goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
For me, scheduling out and planning anything is incredibly hard. but I do think it's a
Yeah.
necessary requirement for success on a website.
Mm-hmm. You're very
And
spontaneous. I'll give you that. But okay, so even though it might be difficult and it might
Mhm.
take a lot of extra thought up front, it is a good idea to schedule out things in advance so that Google sees you as a fresher. I'm thinking of like Rotten Tomatoes is like 100% fresh, you know. Um,
As they see you as consistent, putting out content on a regular basis,
mhm,
updating your website as
mhm.
necessary. Now, the idea around this algorithm is that Google has an understanding of how frequently a website should be updated in the niche.
Okay.
So Google measures plumbing websites across the internet. It sees what the average freshness is of a website, how often
Mhm,
blogs are added, how frequently the content is updated, and it
mhm.
uses that as the baseline for what you should be doing.
Oh. Can you look that up?
Can you
Or
look that up?
can yeah,
There
like
is
what the best amount is for your niche.
the only way you'd be able to do that is if you it's called scrape. If you scraped every or a large amount, say you scraped 100 plumbing websites in
Mhm,
every city, and
mhm,
then you looked at how frequently they update their website, which you can do if
mhm.
they use WordPress or other content management systems that give you fresh or modified dates, and then you would find the average. So you could do it if you wanted to. It'd be
It's
an
just a lot.
extremely, yeah, it'd be an extremely tedious process, but you could do it.
Is there any way of knowing, or you just kinda you have to do
You gotta do the research.
you gotta do the research?
And that's why, when clients come to us and they're outside our niche and they're like, hey, can you take on um, our specific industry? Think about the
Mhm.
amount of research that we have to do to have
An
such a
idea.
to have an idea, to have such
Yeah.
a great understanding. Like we know HVAC, we know plumbing, we know carpet cleaning,
Mhm.
but if another niche came to us, we're talking
Like
about
clothing.
yeah, we're talking about dozens of hours of research, if not
Yeah.
hundreds.
Mhm.
And,
That.
and then we have to pass on that cost to the client, which
Mhm.
is kind of unfair in my opinion when we could just stay inside of our niche.
Yeah. Or solely branch,
Right.
eventually over
Right.
time.
Over
But
time. Or what we'll do is like in the case of a client that we got recently, we told them, hey, we don't know this industry and we're gonna
mhm.
do our best. And hopefully we'll learn over time. But
But
but if this just doesn't work out, like you're not
yeah.
on a contract and we understand completely if you need to
Yeah.
go find somebody that's actually an expert in your industry.
Yeah. It's just funny. I'm sorry. It's just there's when we started this, when we started even discussing brainstorming this podcast, we started thinking about, what we're going to cover and, the basics of it. And I made that document with the skeleton of like what we should probably cover potentially. I
Right.
never in a million years thought it would be this in depth.
Right.
I have so much more respect for every SEO and web designer and person out there because there's so much more to this than I think I could ever understand in, my entire life. So there's just so much that goes into like the psychology. There's so much that goes into it. It's like my mind is just I can't
And
process.
this is why search engine optimizers who are really good at what they do feel disrespected when clients won't pay them the amount of money they think they're worth.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of research hours, a lot of testing, a lot of
Mhm.
uh, patent and abstract reading to
Mhm.
even come to an understanding of how all this works, culminates together, and creates a better website on the internet that can rank higher than other websites because it's not as simple as just creating a website.
No, it's
And
not.
consumers don't understand that. They're like, oh, I know so many web designers, my brother's best friend. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you know that many web designers and SEOs, but there are SEOs and then there are SEOs.
Yeah. There's uh, a hierarchy of who has done the
Knows what.
research, who knows all of the tips and the tricks and the little
Right.
inside, insider baseball, right?
Right.
That not every SEO will take the time to do, number one,
Right. Right.
or aren't willing to acknowledge that there might be something else that they should be doing because they're like, oh,
Right.
this is working and I'm just going to charge this much because this is working and I don't need to do anything else. It's just like
Right.
your content. You have to refresh it. You have to keep moving in your direction of learning.
Absolutely correct. And there's more clustering methods even outside of this. These are just the most basic clustering methods and the most basic of siloing methods. But you're right in your assertion that SEO is a ongoing discipline in which there is no end. If Google
Yes.
changes an algorithm, we're out there trying to find the abstract that's written on it or the patent that's written on it to try and um, bring back to the table for our clients so that we can just be better and better and better over time. But ultimately, it's a very complicated industry.
Yeah. We did start talking about content and we went into this whole advanced technique and the
Which has to
waterfall
do with
of it.
content. It does have to
No,
do with
it really
content.
does. It's just we started out so simple is really I
Mm-hmm.
think what I'm trying to say. Like we started out so simple. And we were talking about, planning your content, having an idea where your content is going, the types of content. And then we get into like the psychological, just mind blowing of clustering and silos and all the stuff that I didn't know existed.
Right.
It's it's just such a multifaceted topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love talking about it. And I think that, hopefully with this podcast, we can get this information and disseminate it out to other search engine optimizers who are looking to grow
Mm-hmm.
because, even a lot of tenured search engine optimizers who've been around for 6, 7 years, they still don't know about different clustering methods. They
Mm-hmm.
probably most likely know about silo methods and the spoke method and the pillar method and the hub method, which we can also talk about at some point. But when it comes to these advanced topics, there's just
Mm-hmm.
not much
Information.
forthcoming discussion on it.
Mm-hmm. No one's really
Um,
open about it because if they share it, they're afraid that everyone else is going to do it.
right. If you tell somebody how to build a perfect website and they
Mm-hmm.
can make it replicable, they become competition.
Mm-hmm.
But I want that. I believe in healthy competition. I believe that people out there should have the information to uh, take back to their clients and create the best possible website and business for their clients, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of my own personal wants or needs.
Yeah. And, we love seeing our clients succeed. When we see our clients succeed, we succeed. We've done our job. And I think that everybody should have that metaphorical high of
Right.
hearing such good things from your clients or seeing a review from somebody who left it for your client. I mean, that is the ultimate, besides, getting paid every month. That's kind of important because we live in a, monetary society. But
Sure. Sure.
that is such a important thing for us, knowing that we're helping somebody else.
Right. Right. And I think that's why I like to get this information out when somebody comes back to me and they're like, man, I followed your strategy. I listened to your podcast and I did this, that, and the other thing. And now
Mm-hmm.
my clients are succeeding. That feels
Yes.
like a success to me. That feels
Yes.
like not only did they win, but my team won as well. Like, why
Yeah.
can't we win together? Like you won, I won, everybody won.
Everybody wins.
Right.
And I would really love to hear from our listeners, what are your success stories? The things that they've learned from you or things that they've just learned in general.
shoot, or things we can learn from them. Like I'm always, if
Yes.
somebody, has something to add about a clustering method or a silo
Mhm.
method that we didn't cover because we don't have,
Mhm.
an unlimited amount of time, like drop it in the comment section. I want to learn
Yeah.
too, I love learning.
Yes. Yes.
So,
I am the same way. I love to learn. Back when I was teaching kindergarten, I would teach them all day and they would learn things, but I would also learn things from them. And
right.
I think that it's just such a important thing is collaborative learning. It's
Yeah.
learning from each other.
And it's important to have a symbiotic relationship
Where it's
where
mutual
you can learn
beneficial.
from people, they can learn from you,
hmm
because then everybody just succeeds together, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in a world where we don't have a lot of wins all the time, it
Right.
is nice to share a win.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Even going back into psychology, how some people
hmm
just have this mindset where everything is scarcity rather than abundance.
hmm
Like to me, there's unlimited clients, there's unlimited opportunity out there, but some people just want to hold everything to themselves, and
hmm
it seems like it feels really yucky. I mean, I'm not sure,
Yucky.
but that's how it seems to me.
It's
Yucky.
not very cash money, you mean?
It's not very cash money, as they say.
Hey,
Hmm.
don't make fun of me.
Huh?
They hold their cards close to their chest, right? They
Yeah,
just, they're not showing their aces up their sleeve.
which is fine. I mean, I get it
Yeah.
100%.
But still, I mean, it's just, I'd rather, you know, learn a different strategy because if something I'm doing is working, but there's a way that I can improve it and make it better, I'm going to
Yeah.
want to know about it.
And I think that's the goal as a search engine optimizer in general, is that if you can take what you see on Google and what other competitors are doing and make it better,
hmm
that's your goal, because you
Yes.
just want to get better and better and better.
hmm I
So
agree.
100%
Well,
whatever.
this was a cluster of an episode. I am really going to be marinating on this all day long because I'm
Good.
just going to be thinking about everything. But if our listeners, like you said, have anything that they do with clusters or silos or whatever, just leave it in the comments. Because we would love to hear about what you guys have to say, as our peeps, our homies. Um,
And what would, if you, I had to ask, what would be your key takeaway from this episode?
um, that logic isn't always used in websites,
Mm-hmm.
even though it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are so many things you have to have ready before you start building your website
Mm-hmm.
in order to create quality content, in order to rank well, in order to build authority, in order to be successful in your business.
Yeah,
That would be my key takeaway for the day. What about you?
that's a great
Have you
takeaway.
learned anything else today?
Um, I think that I've learned how to better understand the things that I talk about through your reflection, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. But my key takeaway today would be that, like you said, while there's many ways to skin a cat, I guess for lack of better words, there's always a way that is more logical, that makes more sense, that will get you to the end results quicker. And I think
I'm
that by
still not over
exploring
the skinning a cat. Can we change that?
the analogy,
The analogy? Yes. Can we
the
do, there
analogy,
are other ways to,
there's more than one way to throw an apple.
okay, there's more than one way to make a burger. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. There's more
Something.
than one way to make a burger. Some
Yes.
people, like to do it in a logical pattern where it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, even alphabetize the ingredients on it,
Yep.
maybe,
Yep.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
other people just take their burger, they smash it, and they put whatever on it.
Yeah. They don't really have a
But
rhyme or reason. They have, you know.
either way, you might still be able to sell the burger to your consumer. But
Mm-hmm.
depending on your process and your workflow and
Mm-hmm.
how easy it is to train people to make that burger, there just might be a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Three pickles is the ultimate, like three pickle pieces.
Is that because it like
That's the
creates?
correct number because
Can
then
we
you get
call?
it in like the all of it. Because if you do 4, that's too much. If you do 2, that's too little.
So we'll call it the Trinity.
The Trinity. Yeah. There we go.
The pickle
Trinity
Trinity.
of pickles. That's what
No,
I
but
think.
that's my
But
key takeaway is the same as yours. There's
yeah,
multiple ways to do things, but there is usually a better and more logical way to do it if you're willing to take the time, do the
yes,
research, and provide those results to your consumer.
absolutely. Thank you everyone for listening today. Our next week will be about social media, which we're really excited to do. Hopefully we'll be able to have a guest on next week. One of our actual team members at Service Lifter, so that should be really exciting. And if you guys have any comments or questions, you can always leave them in the YouTube comments, the podcast comments on Spotify, or you can email us directly at dualdualitysl@gmail.com. And this was really fun. I had
Yeah,
a
no,
good
this was a
time.
great episode. Thanks for
Mhm.
being here, Grace. Thanks, listeners, for being here.
Mhm.
I hope you guys have a wonderful day.